Thank you to the organizers for inviting me to talk about this paper. John, thanks for a really interesting read. I'll just say for a preliminary paper, this was remarkably clear English and easy to read, so that's not always been my experience, so thank you for making my job. Thanks to Gruber or Ben or whomever. I think this is really exciting paper to be talking about. I think this is an uncontroversial statement, I suspect, for folks in this room. Complex decisions are hard and algorithms can help. Broadly, of course, we're going to increasingly have many opportunities to help people make decisions more optimally, or in this case, less terribly, in the face of complex information and behavioral biases. And this is, of course, a setting where behavioral biases are known to be rampant. Healthcare is, I believe, a particularly fertile landscape for such opportunities, mostly because we make so many decisions suboptimally in healthcare. And this is, of course, very cool data and I would argue an important setting. I just want to do a quick aside on other opportunities for algorithms in healthcare because we kind of throw out ideas about healthcare a lot, and I think if you talk to folks who think about healthcare institutions, there are two things that are true. One is that I would say there's an overweight on things like drug discovery, and we talk less about the more immediate and more tangible applications within the healthcare delivery setting, so in hospitals, in doctors' offices. So I want to talk about that. And then I think there's also perhaps some tendency of all of us as a community to conflate what is possible and exciting in healthcare from what is actually happening in healthcare. So I just want to take a moment and talk about why what John's talking about is actually really kind of right up front in terms of technology adoption in this setting. This is also timely because we have an article coming out, I'm told sometime next week, in NEJM Catalyst that is actually about opportunities for using AI in the healthcare delivery setting. And I mostly just want to talk about this because in addition to the setting where we make really bad insurance decisions, there are all of these other opportunities that share many of the same trappings as health insurance decision making, where we in the healthcare community are currently making really bad suboptimal decisions, huge opportunities for the application of simple and complex algorithms to make better choices. And I think just as a plug, there are also exciting and interesting business ideas and papers to be written in all sorts of aspects of administrative work, provider documentation, order prescription, coding entry for providers, all sorts of data entry, scheduling, triaging stuff. I can't go into this now. That also extends to diagnostic work, where we also make lots of mistakes and do lots of things very inefficiently, and then actual treatment in the hospital setting. So this is a really, I just think, fertile place to be looking for applications. All right, and then just my reminder that in healthcare, contrary to, this is not ride sharing. We are still pretty far away from widespread use in most cases. This is a slide that one of my grad students whipped up. It's based on an MIT Tech Review framework for technology adoption that floats around a lot. But basically, most of what we see now in healthcare is kind of on the left-hand side of this picture. A lot of exciting ideas, a lot of academic research. It is difficult to open, every week you can find in a newspaper some cool article, new Nature article about how MIT engineers write an algorithm that is better than board-certified pathologists, and that's really exciting, but that's like way the heck on the left-hand side of this, and there are actually very few products like the ones that John and his co-authors are studying that are actually in this sort of stage 4, stage 5 phase of this. So I think that's an argument for why this is a real opportunity with this paper. Okay, so zooming in on this paper. So we're looking at Medicare Advantage. It's a big program. Actually, when I typed up this slide, I originally wrote big problem, which is it's like some sort of psychological first instinct when writing about healthcare. 19 million enrollees, 33% of all Medicare seniors, so this is something that affects a lot of people where decision making is important. Making good health insurance recommendations is hard, and agents, who in this case are brokers, do it badly. And so the research question here is, do automated recommendations complement or substitute for existing agent expertise? And I would say, and how? Quickly, John, I reckoned that John would present this well, so I'm just going to go through this briefly. So first of all, these brokers stink, and they stink heterogeneously. I think that's really interesting. John presented this a bit later, but I like this slide because it just shows this simulated choice error varies quite a bit between the first and fifth quintile of broker quality. As an aside, I think the quintile stuff is a really effective way to present this, so keep that in the paper. The mandatory use of decision support tool makes them stink less, and to stink less also heterogeneously. So that was a weird use of an adverb. John ended with this picture, and so I'm not going to talk about it in much detail, but I think this idea of overweighting premiums relative to out-of-pocket costs, I want to talk about the intuition of why this is so messed up. So in any given month, implicitly, what these bad brokers are doing is helping people choose an insurance plan where rather than paying $200 in premium dollars in that month, they would instead spend $100 on their premium and then another $500 on out-of-pocket costs. But unless interest rates are bananas high, we should be really ambivalent about premium spending versus out-of-pocket spending. And this is just, the numbers are staggering just how bad this misweighting is in this data set. Okay, this is the average enrollee saves $278 in expected costs. The emphasis is on expected. There's a funny little sleight of hand in this paper that's just worth mentioning, which is everything is based on expected spending. We don't actually, at least in sample, have a retrospective look at how well this algorithm did ex post. I don't know what's feasible, so I don't want to push on that too much. This tool substitutes for agent skill in the dimension for which it's optimized, which is figuring out the cost pieces, not in the other aspects. I just put duh in parentheses there because the algorithm isn't built. It would be shocking if that somehow had worked out. Okay, so I have sort of three big buckets of comments. I know I'll be quick. I just want to chat a little bit more about the sources of selection and bias going on. I think you guys will be able to do this in future versions. I wanted to better understand the flowchart you started describing in section 2 specifically. What do we get when we limit only to these Medicare Advantage customers? John hinted at this. What are we working with as a result, and what does that mean for external validity? The other thing that happens is once you're in what I'm going to call this system, the quality of the algorithm's prediction of next year's out-of-pocket spending depends on the caller's self-reported data. So John showed a picture of this. We are basically relying on humans who are old and who we know from data also misrecall their own healthcare experiences to correctly recall their healthcare experiences and to use that as input into a prediction algorithm. So I just want to think a little bit more about what we're sort of getting or not getting there. And then the last thing here is that, as best I can tell, the ML training data set that we use to predict spending for next year, while definitely better than other things, is not from this population. So there's definitely an out-of-sample prediction thing that's baked into all of this. Okay, broker level stuff, I'll be quick on this. Can you tell us more about the agents? In particular, I was curious, who are these 1/3 of brokers who at least tried out the software in 2015? I know that we think that 1/3 is an upper bound. Are they observably different from other folks? Is there enough retention to study them? It looks like there should be about 100 of these people, maybe not. Okay, and then the last big point is just on welfare implications. So we saw this picture. So I actually saw this, and my reaction to this was yikes, and for the following reasons. While it is true that this suggests that people are much happier with their green plans, with these top scoring plans than the low scoring plans, there's still a lot of scary stuff going on. This suggests really long-term inefficiencies that I would say dwarf the short-term bad choices, and I think you guys can play that up a lot as well, the dynamic effects of this. So a fact from the paper, the lower 80% of the broker population have choice errors that are more than $1,000. So that's scary in and of itself. Alternatively, 3/4 of people just definitionally end up in one of these red plans, in one of the worst plans for them, but only 8.4% of those people actually switch plans next year. So what that means is that 69% of all of these poor Medicare Advantage beneficiaries are actually staying in a plan that is algorithmically predicted to be awful for them, and that I think has really dynamic welfare implications that suggest tools like this are even more important. Okay, and then just last slide on some miscellaneous comments. The one that I'll mention out loud, and I think, and this is mostly for the health economists who are not here but would probably hit on this, is we have these really known geographic variations in healthcare, both supply and demand, and I would love to see you take some of that into account because we know it matters a bunch. I'll give you guys the slides. So in conclusion, obvious applications, rich, unique data set, other settings where tools like this are likely to be super valuable. I'm excited to see how this work develops, and thank you, everybody.